I still remembered the exact moment her arms wrapped around me. Warm, trembling, almost desperate. It wasn't the kind of hug you give a relative you barely know. It was the kind you give someone you're trying to save. Her breath brushed my ear, shaky and urgent, and then she whispered words that felt like a thread pulled from the fabric of my reality. You need to leave before midnight, for your own safety. For a few seconds, my mind refused to process it. The lights of the old countryside house flickered. Laughter echoed from the living room where the rest of the family celebrated my husband Daniel's birthday, and I stood frozen, pinned in place by the weight of her warning. Aunt Margaret pulled away slowly, her eyes scanning my face with a mixture of fear and pity. She was usually so composed, the type of woman who could look the world in the eye without blinking. But tonight, her hands were shaping. Her smile was forced, stretched thin over something that felt like panic. When she let go, her fingers lingered on my arm, as if she wasn't sure she should release me. I tried to speak, but my throat tightened. "What are you talking about?" She didn't answer. Instead, she smoothed the front of her dress, glanced toward the hallway as if expecting someone to emerge, and whispered, "Not here." Then she was gone, swallowed by a wave of guests as if she had never approached me at all. I stood in the corner of the dimly lit foyer, pretending to check my phone, but my heart hammered so loudly I thought someone might hear it. Leave before midnight? What did that even mean? Was it a joke? A warning? A threat? Daniel's family had always been complicated, but never dangerous. His aunt was the quiet one, the observer, the one who spoke only when she had something important to say. She wasn't dramatic. She didn't exaggerate. That meant her words weren't empty. They were a message, the kind that changes everything. I took a deep breath and forced myself to walk back into the living room, pretending nothing had happened. Daniel caught my eye from across the room. His smile was bright, genuine. He looked so happy today, surrounded by relatives who adored him in the old family house where he'd grown up. He raised his glass toward me, and I managed to smile back. But something shifted behind him. A shadow. A face. Someone watching me. Daniel's cousin, Arthur, stood near the fireplace, his expression unreadable. He lifted his drink to his lips without breaking eye contact. It wasn't unusual for him to stare. He'd always been strange, distant, drawn to silence. But now his gaze felt heavy, probing, almost suspicious. When Daniel turned around, Arthur's stare snapped away, as if he had been caught doing something he wasn't supposed to. I shivered. Dinner was served, people laughed, drinks flowed, and yet, every time I tried to act normal, I felt someone watching me, listening to me, waiting for something. The air felt thicker with every passing minute, like the house itself was holding its breath. Around 9, I slipped into the hallway under the pretense of freshening up. I needed to find Margaret, and needed answers. But as I turned the corner toward the stairs, I heard voices, whispered, quick, urgent. She doesn't know. She wasn't supposed to be invited. Well, she's here now. And if she finds out, keep your voice down. My blood ran cold. I peeked around the corner. 2 figures stood halfway up the staircase, Margaret and Victor's older brother, Victor. His face was tense, his jaw set in a way that made him look older, angrier. He was gripping the railing like he was holding himself back from breaking something. "She's my wife," he whispered harshly. "She has every right to be here." Wife. That meant they were talking about me. "But you know what tonight is," Margaret whispered back. "What it means, what it brings. She shouldn't be involved in this. It's not your decision." "It isn't yours either." Victor's voice dropped lower too quiet for me to catch. Then they moved toward the second floor, leaving me trembling in the shadows of the hallway. Not supposed to be invited. She doesn't know what tonight is. The words looped in my head like a warning siren. I turned, intending to head back to the living room, but stopped dead in my tracks. Arthur stood a few feet away. He smiled, not warmly, not politely, slowly, deliberately, like someone who had been waiting for the exact moment to appear.
"Looking for something?" he asked. For the first time that night, I felt genuinely unsafe. Arthur's question hung in the air like a trap. He didn't move toward me, but the stillness in his posture felt worse than any step he could have taken. His eyes were sharp, unblinking, as if he were studying every twitch of my expression. "No," I said carefully, "just needed some air." He tilted his head, still smiling that unsettling half-smile. "Air? Yes, this house can get suffocating." Something in the way he said it made goosebumps crawl up my arms. He wasn't talking about the temperature. He wasn't talking about the crowd. He meant something else, something deeper, heavier, and darker. Before I could respond, he stepped aside, motioning toward the living room. "You shouldn't wander alone," he said softly. "Not tonight." His tone carried a double meaning, though I didn't understand what it was. I walked past him slowly, resisting the urge to run. His eyes followed me until I disappeared around the corner. Only then did I breathe again. Back in the living room, the atmosphere felt wrong. Too loud, too cheerful, too forced. Daniel walked toward me with a plate of food, oblivious to everything happening behind the scenes. "Hey, where'd you go?" he asked, lightly touching my arm. I swallowed. "Just needed a break." He frowned, searching my face. "Are you feeling all right? You look pale." I wanted to tell him everything. But which part? His aunt's whispered warning? The secret conversation on the stairs? Arthur's stare? The sense that something dangerous was quietly unfolding around me? "No, I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." He didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. He kissed my forehead and walked away to greet a new guest. I watched him move through the room, laughing, hugging people, completely unaware, and I wondered, was he truly clueless or simply pretending? The question unsettled me. Later that night, around 10:30, I slipped outside onto the back porch. The cold air slapped my skin, grounding me for a moment. The sky was dark, the forest behind the house thicker than I remembered, as if the trees had grown closer since we arrived. The wooden boards creaked behind me. I spun around. Margaret stood in the doorway, her face pale in the soft glow of the porch light. "Why did you tell me to leave before midnight? What's going on? What aren't you telling me?" She closed her eyes, exhaling shakily. "I shouldn't have said anything. Not like that. But you must understand, tonight isn't like other nights." "That's not an answer." She stepped outside, pulling the shawl tighter around her shoulders. "There are things about this family you don't know. Traditions, obligations, darker histories that Daniel has tried to protect you from." My stomach tightened painfully. "You're scaring me." "Then listen to me." Her eyes locked onto mine with desperate sincerity. "Whatever happens after midnight, you cannot be here." "What happens after midnight?" Before she could respond, the porch light flickered violently, buzzing like a swarm of trapped insects. Margaret froze, staring upward. The light steadied, but her expression didn't relax. "We should go inside. Now." I didn't argue. As we stepped back into the house, I noticed Victor standing in the hallway, watching us. His jaw was clenched, his hands balled into fists at his sides. He didn't speak, didn't blink.
didn't acknowledge us. He simply watched. Margaret whispered, "It's starting." The rest of the evening unfolded like a fever dream. The laughter felt harsher. The shadows seemed darker. Whispered conversations multiplied. People exchanged glances I didn't understand. Doors opened and closed without obvious reason. The house felt alive, breathing, listening, remembering. Just before 11, Daniel finally approached me again. "Come with me," he said gently. He took my hand and led me upstairs to a quiet bedroom at the end of the hall. He closed the door behind us, his back to it, as if blocking the world out. "I know something's wrong," he said. "Tell me." I opened my mouth, but the words tangled with fear. I didn't know where to start. His aunt's warning, Victor's conversation, Arthur's stare, the strange electricity in the house. "Your aunt told me to leave before midnight," I whispered finally. "She said, for my own safety." Daniel's eyes widened, not in confusion, but in recognition. His shoulders tensed. He knew something. "Daniel," I whispered, trembling, "what's going on?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pressed his palms to his face, pacing once across the room. When he finally looked at me, his expression was torn between guilt and dread. "There's something I need to tell you. Something about my family. Something I hoped you would never have to be part of." My heartbeat thrashed. "Tell me." He opened his mouth, but before a single word could escape, the house suddenly went silent, completely silent. The music downstairs cut off mid-song. Voices stopped. Even the hum of the old refrigerator died. It was as if the world held its breath. Daniel's face drained of color. "Oh God," he whispered. "It's begun." The house was eerily silent, the clock ticking toward midnight. I clutched Margaret's hand, my body trembling, every nerve on fire. Daniel stood in front of me, his eyes wide with fear and sorrow, but there was honesty there at last. A raw, painful honesty I had never seen before. "It's time you knew everything," he said, voice cracking. "About my family, about everything you've been warned against." I swallowed hard, bracing myself. "I'm ready," I whispered, though a part of me trembled at the thought. He took a deep breath, stepping closer. "Tonight you saw only the beginning. There are secrets in this house, rituals, mistakes, betrayals that have been buried for generations. My aunt tried to warn you because she knew what could happen if you stayed ignorant. She knew danger, but not just to you, danger to all of us if the wrong truths came out at the wrong time." I felt the weight of those words pressing down, suffocating, but also strangely liberating. The tension, the fear, the uncertainty, it had all led to this moment. And so the first time, I realized the choice wasn't just about survival. It was about trust, about courage, and about stepping into a reality I could no longer ignore. Margaret's hand squeezed mine. She said softly, "Whatever happens next, we face it together. You're not alone." Daniel nodded, taking my other hand. "I was wrong to shield you from this. I thought I was protecting you, but the truth will always find its way. And now it has. I can't lie anymore. I won't." And so, in the dim glow of the Christmas lights, with the world holding its breath outside, the three of us, husband, wife, and aunt, stood together, facing the storm of secrets that had defined generations. Hours passed in tense conversation, confessions spilling like fire through the quiet rooms. Hidden mistakes, family betrayals, unspoken histories, all of it poured into the air, leaving nothing untouched. And as I listened, I understood. The danger Margaret had warned me about wasn't some physical threat. It was the truth itself, raw and unfiltered, powerful enough to change everything. But in that revelation, in the honesty that flowed between us, I found something unexpected: relief, clarity, and a fragile, enduring hope. The night had threatened to destroy us, but it also gave us the chance to rebuild, to trust, and to choose one another freely, without illusions. When the clock struck midnight, I stepped outside for the first time that evening. The snow had stopped falling, and the air felt crisp, clean, and real. I breathed deeply, letting the cold bite at my cheeks, feeling alive in a way I hadn't before. The letter, the warnings, the fear, they had all led to this: a moment of truth, a moment of choice, and a moment of courage. I turned back toward the house, my heart steadier than it had been all night. Daniel followed, Margaret at his side, and I realized that even though the world could be dangerous, unpredictable, and full of hidden truths, we could face it together. And for the first time, I knew, no matter what secrets lay ahead, we would survive. Together.